Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Boro Fan TV. James Hutchinson here. Our show this week has been delayed by 24 hours, but with good reason, because it enables us to celebrate our victory and reflect upon last night's win over Sunderland in the derby, or not the derby as some people might call it. Joining me to reflect on that game and all other things Boro is Tony Guest. Welcome to the show, Guesty.
Evening, James.
Great to see you again, pal.
And you, mate.
Yeah, as I said, Tony and all Boro fans out there, we're going to look back on last night's Teesway derby. We'll also preview the Blackpool game at the weekend and take a final look, thankfully, at the transfer window. So, as always, Boro fans, get yourselves involved. You know how it works. We're going to be talking about all things Boro and obviously last night's game, which a lot of people, yes, Super East, we are okay after last night. Everyone's quite happy to talk about the Boro this week, no doubt, Tony. But before we get on last night's game, we'll just have a quick reflection about the Watford game the previous week, because that was obviously since we've last been on air. Again, it was another story of a decent performance not being rewarded with a favourable result. Were we just unlucky again, or is there more to it, Tone?
Yeah, like you say, are we just unlucky? Are we sloppy? I was talking to fans around the Riverside last night, and people were admiring Munez's effort from in his own half, trying to score from in his own half. But you're comfortable. You've been absolutely fantastic all game. Their second goal came from that attempt, trying to score from in his own half. I know Paddy made a really bad mistake in the build-up in the goal. But yeah, I find it concerning to, like you say, our two best performances this season against Stoke and West Brom, we've come away with a point from both games. We've conceded late on in both games. And for me, that's quite worrying. That's quite worrying on the playing side, and it's quite worrying on the coaching side, James, because, he talks the talk, does Wilder, and to be going for a win, like you say, I can't fault him. It's exciting. I can't fault him for trying to do it, but there's times in this division where you are going to have to shut up shop and you are going to have to make choices of bringing a striker off and putting a defender on and getting away with what you've got. And like you say, his decisions in them two games have cost us 5 points. And for me, it's more worrying playing well and getting beat than playing absolutely crap and winning 1-0, James.
Just going to say, and obviously Super East has picked up on this, and he said sometimes a lack of defensive stillness at the end of the game and an ability to see it through has cost us. But maybe, and we're going to get on to the Sunderland game now, that's what we did do last night. We didn't play great, but we saw the job through right till the end, didn't we, Tone?
Yeah, you brought up a bit there, James, didn't you? Quite what you said, but like you say, the Watford game, that the two lads they've got, I can't think of the names at the moment. That Pedro and Sarr.
Yeah,
like you say, we got off to a fantastic start. Like Munez, who's really impressed me with what I've seen of him up to now. I've seen him live for the second time last night, and what I've seen against Watford, that's a striker's goal against Watford, which we've been waiting for a long time. You know what I mean? Getting into the box, 6-yard box, and powering the header in. Absolutely fantastic. But like you say, Watford are an absolutely fantastic team. And, they've got so much strength and depth in their squad. We pretty much dominated that game. I know they had their two danger men who'll rip any team apart. But I thought we held our own. And to go to bed again, looking at a point and to have that taken away so cruelly, I just couldn't believe it. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll move on from that now because I want to talk about last night instead, Tony. Before we get on to that, Dave Richardson said losing and drawing games in the last 5 minutes has been Boro for years, and yet we're pretty familiar with that feeling. It has happened.
Yeah, Dave, it seemed to happen quite regular under Mowbray. Karanka come in, and that was one of his first jobs to stop these late goals that we used to leak. And, for a while under Karanka, it didn't happen, but it's crept back in, you know what I mean? And like you say, we've witnessed it for decades now. So it's nothing new, but it still hurts. It still gives you a sleepless night.
Well, we'll get on to last night's game, Tony. And beforehand, there was plenty of debate on social media and elsewhere about the merits of this fixture of being a derby game. What's your take on it, Tony?
We have it every time we meet Sunderland, every time we meet Newcastle, every time we meet Leeds. I'm old school, James, and I was always told as a kid that a derby game is a game between two teams from the same city. But obviously, Newcastle's a massive city and it's only got one club. Sunderland's a city and only got one club. Like you say, we're just a little small town in Yorkshire, and Sunderland's 20 minutes up the road. So for us as Boro fans, it's a derby, and all these Sunderland fans, these Mad Mackhams who say it's not a derby, but they turn up in the thousands to the Riverside last night. You know, if it wasn't so much a big game, it was a Monday night. It was on Sky. You're playing, in your eyes, your nearest local rival. So, well, one of your nearest local rivals. And you turned up in your numbers when you could have sat at home on the telly and watched yourselves get beat. But to see us all at the Riverside, it was a joy, and it was an absolute joy when McGree scored, and you don't seem to go quiet.
Yeah. David LaRoche said, I'm old school, lads. It's definitely a derby game in the conversation. And it certainly, Tony, it feels like a different game. I don't know what it feels like from Sunderland, but there certainly seems more on that game than there is on any other for me this season in the Championship. Do you think that's a fair point?
James, once you're walking up to that Riverside and you get down the steps, or whichever which way you make your journey to the Riverside, and you get to that ground, and the atmosphere is totally different. Yeah. It's totally different in and amongst the away fans. You know what I mean? It's a totally different atmosphere to anything else. And to get the Riverside last night and to get that feeling again, that buzz that you're playing Sunderland, obviously there is better feelings than it, but at that moment last night, it just felt, yes, get in. Let's get at them.
Are you able to enjoy the derby games, Tony? Because I've spoken to one or two people, and most people absolutely love them, but some people say they're racked with fear because of if you lose, how bad it is, and bumping into people you work with that support the other lot and stuff like that. Do you actually enjoy
I'm at an age now, James, where, you know, I'm not bothered if we win, lose, or draw. Obviously, in a derby game where, you know, because I've given my side of the story, they've given me the side of the story. I've had posters ripped down at work in the cabin, things written on Janino and things like that off Newcastle and Sunderland fans. So I totally get that people feel sick in the pit of the stomach watching it, because I've been there, and like you say, I dare say I've threw a few sickies in the past to avoid it on the Monday morning. You know what I mean?
Steve Taylor said he was working the match last night and the fans were fantastic. Without doubt, the atmosphere was somewhat special. And just to add a bit more spice to it, Tony, was the appearance in the opposition dugout of Tony Mowbray. What was it like seeing him in charge of the enemy?
I think it's divided a lot of Boro fans, James. Like you say, people are putting on social media, good luck, Mogger. I couldn't bring myself to wish him good luck, you know, for him. Yeah. And Wilder hit the nail on the head. So I think somebody asked him, would he ever cross the divide in Sheffield to go to Wednesday? And he just said, not a chance. You know what I mean? So he has his reasons for taking it, you know. Well, I think it's been nearly 10 years now, maybe it's longer, since he managed the Boro. A lot longer since he was captain of the Boro. So he's still got an affiliation with the club. I dare say when he gets sacked at Sunderland, that, you know, we'll start to see him again quite regularly back at the Riverside. So I have no qualms with him going to Sunderland, but it still leaves a nasty taste in the mouth.
I mean, at the end of the day, Tony, what my take on it is he's a professional, and as footballers, players cross amongst the divide on lots of occasions. So I don't see it being really any different in being a manager. But as you say, I don't know if I could go as far as wishing him good luck, because I don't ever want Sunderland to win anything.
No, and like you say, there's been lots of players who's to and fro between Sunderland and the Boro anyway. So
yeah. Terry
like
French,
you say,
sorry,
Agent Mowbray. I hope he does the job that all those Boro fans want him to do.
Terry French has made a good point with regards to is it or is it not a derby, saying that Sunderland fans seem to spend an awful lot of time on Boro media sites and have plenty to say about us. Should we be flattered? And I mean, the other thing is, Tony, it's been over 4 years since we last played them. So again, that added to it all, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely added to it. Like you say, they were, they were up for it as much as what we were last night. Both managers in them dressing rooms have been telling them how important this game is to both sets of fans, and it's you just see it every time. Like you say, Leeds, Sunderland, Newcastle. Middlesbrough are insignificant to them three clubs, but they all turn out. They all come, and they all give us the abuse. And we give them it back. I dare say the Sunderland fans don't act at other stadiums like they were last night at the Riverside.
Yeah, fair point, mate. Jake Lowe's got in touch with us. Thanks for watching, Jake. He said it was a great result last night, and we dug in and sat deep, which was unnerving a little bit at times, but saw the job through. We were resolute, and hopefully this can spark our season. We'll get on to the game now, Tony, and we'll talk about the closure of the transfer window later on in the show. But I think when you looked at the team sheet, and especially the subs bench last night, it showed a lack of options that we have certainly in the midfield area, didn't it? And does that concern you, Tone?
Yeah, we've gone from having a riches of midfielders. I'm trying to think which manager under from Gary Monk to Neil Warnock. We always seem to have way too many midfielders. You know what I mean? And to see the situation that we're in now, still relying on Johnny Howson's legs. I put a comment on today, and I think that's been about quite 50-50, because my personal opinion is Mort hasn't come to the party with us yet, James. I haven't seen the lad make one sprint. I haven't seen him bust a gut to get from box to box or to work up and down the line yet in a Boro shirt, in the same way which we see Johnny Howson flying about. So,
we've got to be a bit patient with him, Tom, because he's only just joined us, hasn't he? Do you think it's a case of him and Matt Clark's another one? I mean, he had a great game on his debut, but do you think those lads are just settling in at the minute?
But I look at it the other way, where you see Muniz, who's just come to the club, and he absolutely battled for every ball last night, James.
True.
Do you know what I mean? He fought like a lion last night. He was absolutely fantastic. But the problem I have with that is he's a big, strong lad. And once again, is he going to be a Boro forward who's going to work hard, burn himself out in 60 minutes and not get us any goals? We've got two flyers down the flanks now, and we should be getting the best out of him. Now he's at our club, James, you know what I mean? Yeah. But like you say, in the midfield, yeah, it's very worrying about the lack of depth, and the way some teams just seem to pass through our midfield this season. Yeah. It's quite worrying, because Howson, for me, got showed up at Watford. Like you say, I don't know how early he took the knock, whether he was carrying knock before he actually the tackle which made him go off. I don't know, but he just didn't seem. He seemed so off the pace against Watford. Didn't seem like the normal Johnny Howson. So what that's telling me, if he's not firing on all cylinders, we're going to struggle, James, like we did against Watford for periods. So, like you say, it's somewhat Wilder wanted to address, and for some reason it never went through for him.
Yeah. We'll have a look, as I said, further on in the show at the transfer window. Jay Wilson has also been in touch with, and he said that it was good to see us stay strong in the final minutes and keep a clean sheet last night. And I mean, a big part in that, Tony, was Liam Roberts. Third game in succession, he was between the sticks last night. I tell you what, Zach Steffen's got a bit of a job on his hands getting back in the team now, hasn't he?
Yeah, this was another discussion I was having last night about, people saying it's been I don't want to go to the transfer window yet, but like you said, people were saying it's a good transfer window. But how many of these signings were Wilder's signings? And this Roberts, who's come in, like you say, I was sat right behind him all that second half, and he was commanding. That box was his box. He was punching. Yeah. He was communicating, and it's such a different feeling having him in front of you than Zach Steffen or Clumsy Lumley. You know what I mean? And it was just, you just felt as if that goal was his, and there was nothing going to get past him. James, absolutely fantastic. For once, I'm, it's 3 games in, but I'm hoping we found another Stephen Pears, because he was absolutely fantastic.
I praise that, mate. That is high praise comparing to Pearsy, definitely. David LaRoche says Roberts was outstanding in goal last night, and Zach Steffen will not get back in at the moment. Peter Grasham said he's laughed at the Mackhams on Facebook, saying that they don't class it as a derby. They should maybe play CM Red Star. Well, they might have more luck in winning one of them derbies. Yeah. Tony, another man who had an outstanding game last night was Dale Fry, back in the side following Darrell Lenihan's injury. Maybe had a sticky start to the game, which is understandable considering he's hardly played this season, but he was up against a tricky customer in Ellis Sims, and I thought he was outstanding last night, Tone.
So some of them tackles he was putting in, and people saying he has no pace, and he's chasing that Sims down the, like you say, down their right-hand side, and I'm thinking, Dale, you're not going to catch him. And then next thing, them big legs start moving, and he's winning the ball back for us. Tackles in the box, timing them to perfection. Lenihan's come in, and he seems to be flavour of the month with Wilder. Dale's been pushed to the side for most of this season, but our clean sheet last night. Dale comes back in the team, absolutely awesome. I'm not a Lenihan fan at the moment. For me, he's not the man in the middle to be in our defence, especially when you've got a local lad, Dale Fry, there who'll run through a brick wall for the club. And last night he proved it. He was absolutely fantastic.
Tony, it seems as though Chris Wilder's going to stick with his 3 centre halves. So if that's the case, who would your 3 be, Tony?
Dale, Clark, and I've been saying it all season, since the season started, to get Paddy back in the back 3.
Yeah.
But he's not a centre half, James. The only reason I like McNair playing in the back 3 is when he can carry the ball forward, and his link-up play when he moves into the midfield and he gets forward to where he got the Paddy De Bruyne handle from. He's not a centre-half, which was proved against Watford, where he should have put that lad in row Z for the first goal, and the second goal just following his man and not holding his position. So, yeah, he's not a defender, but for me, that's the 3 going. The 3 I'd like to see going forward. We still look as if we're not compact enough. The 3 centre halves aren't compact enough. There seems to be a lot of gaps in between them for teams to exploit. But Wilder can, if I can see it, Wilder can see it, and hopefully they can work on it and tighten us up even more, James.
Yeah. Peter Grasham, Dale Fry's like Woodgate reads the game really well. Thanks for getting in touch, Peter. Do you think some of those problems, though, with the defence, we were talking before we came on air, Tony, is maybe because of the issues in midfield, and we haven't quite got the balance right there in midfield at the minute? Do you think that's maybe creating some difficulties with the defence?
Well, like you said, there was a moment in the second half where Dale was comfortable on the ball and he was carrying it out, and there was no movement at all in front of him. There was no one from the midfield coming to him to take the ball off him, and he just ended up, his only option then was to, to put it into their half. And like you say, it was a terrible pass, but it was made to look terrible because he didn't have no options. Like you say, we let Piero go. It's a funny one, James. You know what I mean? And to be relying, like you say, I'll keep repeating myself, to keep relying on Johnny House and Mowat and like you said, but saying that, Matt Crooks had his best game for a long time in a Boro shirt last night. He was unbelievable in the first half last night. You know what I mean? So there's potential there, James. It's just, getting it backed up, or is he going to find a gem? Is it a gem down at Rockcliffe in the under-23s? Is he going to go into the free transfer market? We don't know.
Yeah. We'll look at that, Tony, in a little while. Peter Grasham again, he's just said there, the reason the gaps are in the middle is because the midfield's not working back. And talking of potential, Isaiah Jones and Ryan Giles get a lot of credit and a lot of praise off Boro fans, especially Isaiah Jones. I thought he was outstanding last night for his work back as much as going forward. It was great to see what he put in last night, wasn't it, Tone?
Yeah, he put a shift in last night, that kid. He was fantastic at both ends of the pitch.
Yeah.
Like you say, Giles for me is absolutely amazing. All that kid wants to do is get the ball in the box, James.
Yeah.
As soon as that ball's at his feet, he wants to get it in the box. The only problem I've got is he doesn't bust the gut when play breaks down to get back in position. We're not Liverpool. We can't play our fullbacks, especially in that division. We can't play our fullbacks as high as what they do, which I think we've tried to do this season, and that's what's exposed our back three, mainly more than the midfield, where our two wing backs are getting caught too high up the pitch. But last night, Jones just covered his right hand side, with passion and desire. And is it Clark, the kid that got from Spurs?
Yeah, Jack Clark. Yeah, he used to be at Leeds.
Leeds, that's him. Yeah, and he was quite decent last night. But thank God he can't cross the ball, because his delivery is God Almighty. Yeah. It's not a patch on the delivery that our strikers are getting. But like you say, Isaiah Jones last night, it was absolutely immense. Up and down. Never give him a kick. And like you say, for a little lad, he's physical. He made sure when Clark got past him on one occasion, he made sure that, he wasn't going to get away from him. And he took a card for he took a yellow card for the lads. Kept us in the game.
Yeah. Well, from one of those deliveries from Ryan Giles, it was Riley McGree, who was at the centre of much that was really good about Boro in the first half, Tone, that got the winning goal. The wonder from down under. We were talking about him on the show last week, saying we want a little bit more from him. Well, that's not a bad start, getting a winning goal in a derby game, is it?
I was listening to Maddo on the radio yesterday, and he said that people had been, whinging and moaning about Riley McGree, that, I can't believe he's in the side. He shouldn't be picking him. He's absolutely dross. But that last night is his best game in a Boro shirt. His finishing is absolutely woeful. Every half chance or decent chance last night before we scored seemed to fall to him. And I turned to the son-in-law and I said, why does it effing keep falling to him? Why can't it fall to someone who can finish? I said he can't finish a dinner. And then the ball ends up at Charles, and he puts the ball in, and he gets on the end of it. So, like you say, that's the best. That's the best I've seen him in a Boro shirt this season, James. He was fantastic.
Yeah, long may it continue.
He just tries something different. Sometimes he annoys me when there's a simple pass on, and he's trying to pass it with the outside of the foot. Trying to bend it in rather than just pass the ball. But that's football. We got to be entertained. We got to be seeing something different. And like you say, that when that goal went in, the roof just absolutely came off that stadium. And there's no better sight. There's no better sight for me or feeling to be in that Riverside when it's packed to the rafters. It's you know what I mean. You just sit there and you think, yes. You don't see no red seats. All you see is Boro fans, and that made my night. Just seeing the stadium full, James.
Yeah. No, it was a special night, Son, and I think the second half was nervy to say the least. Pal, what do you put that down to? Why was it so nervy in the second half?
because of the Stoke Watford game, most probably, James. And for Wilder for once seen sense and not going on gung-ho and trying to get a 2-0 or 3-0 win instead of just a 1-0 win. When Dykesdale came on, he was absolutely fantastic. Chasing them Sunderland attackers down, like Jack Clark, and the pace on Dykesdale is unbelievably quick. And you know what, James? I've with the goalkeeper and the way Dale was playing, and when Dykesdale come on, I didn't feel nervous at all. I just felt there was nothing going to penetrate our goal last night. You know what I mean? Like the free kick towards the end where Roberts tipped it over the bar. I just felt our goal was never in any big danger.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, Tony, Sunderland had a lot of possession second half, but they didn't really create many clear-cut chances in that second 45, did they?
No. That's down to the hard work. That's down to the hard work ethic. That's got to happen every week now, James. We've seen that they can dig in. We've seen that cut silly mistakes out. Stick to what the Wilder tells them to do, and we should be all right. So we just have to build now, and then hopefully get away from that bottom end of the table before the international break.
And Tony, do you think maybe some of the nerves that were in there in the second half was not only was it a derby game, but we have had a bit of a stuttering start of the season. It's just obviously a bit of nerves in there and just the desperation to get the 3 points last night and see the job through.
Yeah, that's 2 wins at home now, James. So if we can keep our home form going, sort our away form out, start picking up points away from home, we should be all right. All these pundits, all these experts on Sky Sports, the woolly-headed fella, is it Goodman? I can't think of his name.
Yeah, he used to play.
Yeah, that's him. All these pundits, watch the Championship in week out. They're still tipping us, they're still saying we're one of the best teams in the division and expecting us to be up there. And like you say, I've said in the past, I don't like looking at the table just yet. People who are top could end up getting relegated. People who are bottom end up getting promoted. So get to the first international break, see where we're at, then, hopefully kick on after that.
Yeah.
2 winnable, like you say, our next 2 games are winnable. So
yeah. Just bringing it on this one, Ton. Ibrahim Tanner, thanks for watching, pal. He's just said, my only real criticism of Wilder is that he leaves his subs too late. I know we're short on numbers, but he needs to give people a rest. We work hard and sometimes we're playing against 4 or 5 fresh subs and we look knackered. We will pick up injuries. Do you take that on board, Ton?
Yeah, he is quite... he does like to leave it quite late to bring substitutes on. That's what me and the son-in-law were talking last night about Muniz, about how much work he's putting in. He's a big lad. He will get injured, you know what I mean? And he's come to the club. We want a full season out of him. We don't want to see him getting, crocked. Yeah, I thought the first substitute last night, I think it was when Paddy went off.
Yeah.
I felt he could have brought Watmore on and moved McGree back into the midfield. Do you know what I mean? But like you say, he's a manager. And yeah, he is quite... He does bring the subs on quite late, but I think he was just desperate to get 3 points at home against Sunderland last night. So I'm not going to tell you the truth, I only seen Watmore and Dykesdale come on. So if he brought any more subs on, I can't remember. Because, like you say, I was just that engrossed.
And all in all,
the game stops that many times in the second half now anyway. You don't know what's happening.
Stevie Mays said... Fry's different class, and also the keeper. It's headache for Wilder on the selection front now. And Paul Nicholas, with regards to Isaiah Jones, best game he's had for a while. He looked sharp, and his defensive play, which sometimes maybe hasn't been lauded so much in the past, was excellent last night. Fry was quality. He's got to play more. And Colin Fright said, hopefully further in the season, the next month or so, he's looking forward to seeing Muniz and Akpom working together as a pair. before we move off the derby game, mate, all joking aside, Tony, it's good to have Sunderland back on the fixture list, isn't it?
Yeah, like you say, let's get the three of us back in the same division, whether it's a championship or the Premiership, because you just can't beat atmospheres like that. It's just, you've had we've had our European nights, we've had FA Cup semi-finals, League Cup wins, but there's nothing beats the atmosphere of a derby game. Sunderland fans, Newcastle fans, it's a derby game.
Yeah. Well said, pal. Well said. Well, we'll quickly look back at the transfer window as a whole, Tony. It finally closed last Thursday, and I think the final day was a bit of an anticlimax, some would say, for Boro fans. However, overall, in terms of the whole window, Tony, if you were asked to give it a mark out of 10, what would you give it from a Boro point of view?
As a fan,
yeah,
10 players coming in, you've got to give it a 9 out of 10. But as a manager, how many of them signings were actually Wilder's picks? You know what I mean, James? So it's a bit iffy. You know what I mean? So, like you say, how badly...
Well, Tony, there's more left than come in, actually. So the size of the squad has reduced, hasn't it?
The squad's been reducing since, I think, we lost the load when Woodgate came in. Then Warnock cleared the decks, and now Wilder's come in and lost the load. So it makes you wonder, but you still seem to be watching the same players, James, what you were 3 or 4 years ago. There doesn't seem to be any different players in. Like last night, obviously, we had Clark, Clark, Muniz, and Mowat. You know what I mean? But it's not, like you say, it's not a Nottingham Forest overall, is it? You know what I mean? So where they need a double decker for a team bus now. Like you say, fans think, yeah, we brought 10 players in, but it's worrying how many of them were Wilder's picks and how many were Scott's and Bowser's picks to bring into the club. The goalkeeper, he's come from the best team in the world for me, Man City, and he's had world-class defenders in front of him, and I don't think he's experienced anything like the Championship. So I'm starting to think, well, was he one of Wilder's picks, and is he really injured? Roberts has come in, showed that he's worth every penny that we've paid for him, and he's like, for me now, we should see the season out. So 9 out of 10 as a manager. I don't know, James. It's still poor that we can't. I think it's about the 3rd or 4th season where we've struggled or brought no one in on transfer deadline day.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, my personal opinion is I feel a little bit sorry for Chris Wilder, because there was mention of marquee signings. Then even after the Watford game last week, he was very open in saying, hopefully we're going to get 2, maybe 3 players in before the window closed. We know where we're short. Now, it's not down to him to bring the players in. It's down to the recruitment team. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, they haven't been able to deliver at the end, have they?
No, we've been up this avenue so many times since Bowser come to the club. I thought it was going to change under Kieran Scott. Obviously, it hasn't. Scott's come in, done the business with Warnock, and I thought we were on the move. We've got someone coming with a good reputation who's going to bring, work something similar to how Norwich do, but it's never happened, James. So whether it's the man at the top saying no, which I don't think he will. I don't think he'll interfere now that Kieran Scott's at the club. So I think it's down to them two more than anything, and it's disappointing, really, especially for the manager when, and like you say, you said to me the other day, the club showed ambition bringing a manager like him in, but they haven't backed him up with the goods, really.
Fair point, Tone. Ibrahim Tanner says that Tav shouldn't have gone until we had a replacement in. Did become inevitable, but we should have protected the squad first. And I think out of all the transfer things, that's probably the one that's hurt us really, because you can still see maybe the deficiencies in the side without Tav being there. It's certainly something that, as of yet, we haven't been able to plug that gap, have we?
Well, for all the people who watch this, for all the people who've come on here, for all the other people who've been on other forms of social media, absolutely slating the kid, you know, it just shows you. It just shows you what he brought to our football club. And for me, you know, from the first day I seen him, I thought he was always going to be so much special. And now he's gone. It's proven that, you know what I mean, James, because we're still missing something which Tav used to bring to our team.
Yeah. You can still bring free agents into the squad, Tony. Do you see us going down that avenue between now and January?
Yeah, I can see, like you say, we've done it with Mikel. I can see something similar, but the names I've seen touted about, Danny Drinkwater, you know, I don't want to see him at our club. He was absolutely shite at Reading, and I don't want to see him in a Boro shirt. Some Australian, I can't think of who he is, that I've seen a lot mentioned, you know.
Luongo.
So something like that, you know, he might as well go back catching kangaroos instead of coming trying to run our midfield. But I dare say, I've even seen Ramirez mentioned. You know what I mean? So
I think one Aussie that's been mentioned, I don't know if it's Tom Rogic it was
Rogic, that's it, yeah.
I actually, he's the one that I would maybe be tempted to take a punt on, Tony, because I think he's a decent player, Rogic.
Yeah, there's some decent players out there, James, but it's getting someone. What I've with other clubs, what I've noticed, they'll bring these players in who are out of contract. The bench warmers, James, they never seem to see the light of day. You know what I mean? They come to a club and they don't see the light of day. So, like you say, there's some good stuff. There's some good players out of work at the moment, James. So, hopefully, we don't just need the one. We need a couple. If we can get a couple of gems, you know, revive the careers, what's left of it, and hopefully take us on somewhere, James.
Yeah. Well, we did it a couple of years ago with Duncan Watmore, didn't we? So we need to get lucky again, maybe in terms of a midfielder this time round, don't we?
That's been one of the best signings we've ever made, Watmore. You know what I mean? You know, took him off the scrap heap, and to see how that kid wants to play football and how he works, you know what I mean? Absolutely unbelievable signing.
Yeah. Chris Sykes has said that the manager's been badly let down. Stood there saying that 2-3 are incoming, and it didn't happen, and it let him and the fans down. But as you said, there's still the opportunity for Boro to bring in players. But what isn't in doubt is that at the weekend there's going to be over 3,500 Boro fans converging on Blackpool for the day out at the seaside, as we look to register our first victory on the road and build on that win last night against Sunderland. And as you say, Tony, we're 4 undefeated at home, but on the road we've had 4 games and we've only got 1 point so far. So if we're serious about mounting a challenge on at least the top 6 this year, that's got to change soon, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's not going to be easy going there. You know what I mean, James? But after last season, the performance there last season, and you know, it was our turn to get the last-minute winner. It was one of Wilder's first games as well, James, wasn't it?
It was over the Christmas. You'd only been there about a month. It was over the Christmas holiday period. Because Blackpool wanted to call the game off, didn't they? Because they said they didn't have enough players. Then we played that and then didn't play Sheffield United 3 days later.
Yeah. Like you say, it's no games in the Championship are easy, James, but that first goal in this league's vital.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's for so many different reasons, you know. It annoys the living daylights out of me, even when our club does it. You know, the time wasting that goes on in this league once a team goes 1 up. The teams are starting to waste time from the 30th minute in the first half, you know what I mean, to get through to the half time. Still a goal.
You think Newcastle United are you, Tone?
Oh, God, that was a woeful that, you know what I mean, James? But the Championship, they're all at it. It's unbelievable. But get get the first goal like we did against Watford, get a nice early goal and build on that. Let's get some points on the road.
Yeah.
You know, it's either feast or famine with the Boro. Or we're either winning at home and winning away, or this season it's winning at, you know, doing quite well at home and, you know, picking up absolutely nothing away. And I think it's time to start and change that.
You said there, Tony, about Blackpool, that it is a tough place to go, and it has been proven in the past it's a tough place to go.
Yeah.
It's got a new manager in charge this year, Michael Appleton, who's taken over this season after the manager went and joined Steve Gerrard at Villa to join the coaching staff there. What's your take on Blackpool? I think the mid-table at the minute, they're a couple of points above us in the league, but this was only the second season back in the Championship. But as you say, they're always a side that seem to do maybe punch above the weight when they're in the Championship.
Like you say, they've come from turmoil, James, haven't they? You know what I mean? With the owner and all that, and looking like going out of business. And, you know, they're like, for me, they're like a Northwest Millwall where they're going to scrap and fight, and, you know, all the dark arts will come out, and that's the type of team that they remind me of. So I don't think they're ever going to threaten the top six. You know what I mean? There's always a chance with a club being so small that they could end up getting relegated. You never know with teams like that in the Championship. You know what I mean, James?
Yeah.
But what you think you do know, they're going to scrap and fight for every ball.
Yeah. Chris Sykes said with regards to the time wasting and gamesmanship, he said, I think that's why we're getting up to 8 minutes stoppage time. It was 7 last night, wasn't it, Tone? I mean, there was a lot of substitutions, but yeah, it seems as though the officials aren't adding on that time now at the end of games. Have you got
there's lots of fans now, and obviously staff, management, pundits. There's actually fans in the crowd now actually stopping and starting to watch to see how long the ball's in play, how long he's been down with cramp. You know what I mean? So hopefully the officials are getting the message now, and they do stick a hefty chunk on at the end. It's no good for you. It's no good when you win 1-0 and you see 7 minutes go up, but, you know, you pay a lot of money to watch 90 minutes of football.
Yeah. Paul Chambers thinks that Blackpool will certainly be up for the game on Saturday. There's going to be some atmosphere. Like I say, there's going to be a big travelling contingent from Teesside going over there. And I think Blackpool the last few years, certainly since there's been the change in ownership, Tony, the atmosphere at Bloomfield Road and their fans when they've been on the road as well, they might not be huge in numbers, but they certainly create a decent atmosphere, and it'll almost be like a cup tie on Saturday, won't it? Have you got any recollections of any visits yourself to Blackpool to watch the Boro, or just any on the donkey rides or out, mate?
I have lots of recollections of visits to Blackpool, James, which I can't say too much on here about.
Oh, is that maybe why it's been the first time in about 40 years we're going there on a Saturday tour this week?
Yeah, bloody hell. It's strange for them to let it happen, you know what I mean? Because I remember going to Bloomfield Road once. I was in digs in Blackpool, and it's nothing to do with the Boro. And Arsenal were playing Blackpool in the League Cup. So I thought, instead of going, I think I'll go watch. I think they were in the 4th division then, or 3rd division. I think I'll go watch them tonight. So I goes over. I think at the time, it was about 1989 or so. I think it was sort of like 15 quid. I said, yeah, give us. I'm going to the pub. I don't care who you're playing.
Probably a sounder investment.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a great ground. It's a great place, so traditional. But it's obviously it's been modernised now. But like you just said there, James, about Blackpool, you know, they've had a change of ownership. You know, things have changed for them. And the same for Hull. That's what's making this championship this season. There's so many teams now on the up, and it's going to be really difficult for everyone, for me. So every game's going to be an absolute battle.
Yeah. Stephen Jarrett's not far away in Blackpool. He's saying up the Boro from Southport. And Paul Nicholas is making his first visit to Blackpool on Saturday, football-wise. Can't wait. Paul, I think you'll be in for a treat. It'll be a good day out Saturday. So, Tony, on that note, what do you reckon the score's going to be at Bloomfield Road on Saturday?
If Dale plays and McNair's fit, I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for the Boro.
He's got to play Fry, hasn't he? Surely after last night. Now he must have played his way back into the starting lineup now, Tone.
You see, like when Dale came on against Watford, you could see he was out to prove a point. Now, I don't know whether him and Wilder have had words at the training ground, which there's a rumour kicking about they did, and that's why maybe Dale cut his nose off to spite his face. But I think he came on and proved a point against Watford to Wilder, and like you say, hopefully he can keep putting performances in like that. And like you say, Wilder will have to keep him there because I don't rate that Lennerton one bit, James.
You don't think again, Tony? It's like another one of just settling in, just finding his feet. You don't rate him, Tone?
I think he's had enough experience in the Championship, James. You know, with his time at Blackburn. No, because like you say, Clark's come in and. You know, after his first game, he was absolutely fantastic. But he seems to have settled in straight away. So, and Lennerton's been at the club a lot longer. Maybe it's just Teesside bias that I wanted Teesside lads in our back, in our defence. You know what I mean, James?
Well, there you go. That's Blackpool wrapped up. Ibrahim Tanner, he lives in Preston, can't get a ticket. He's gutted for the weekend. Ibrahim, I'm sure the Blackpool fans will welcome someone from Preston in there, and I don't think you'll have any bother there. I'm sure you'll be fine. Hello, Paul Chambers says, just open your windows at 3 o'clock and you'll hear us. But Boro fans, everybody that's been watching, that's your lot for this week's show. Many thanks to you out there for watching and contributing. It's always appreciated. Thank you very much. And a big thank you to Tony Guest for joining me on the show tonight. Thanks for coming on, Tone.
Thanks for having me, James. Pleasure.
No problem at all, pal. You're always welcome. Look out for Joe Scott's preview of the Blackpool game later on in the week. If you're heading there on Saturday, enjoy yourselves, have a great day out, and hopefully cheer the lads on to another 3 points. But until next Monday, from me, James Hutchinson, and everyone at Boro Fan TV, take care, have a good week, and up the Boro.
Up the Boro.